Hey, what's going on, GameLeapers? This is Ex, and in today's upload, we're going to be going through 10 broken champions that are being abused by those players in high elo Korea. So these champions, they get the most out of them, and you can too by signing up to our website to get access to our champion courses and guides, and also VOD analyses. So we will break down what these players do in these champions at the highest level that you can easily do in your games as well. And of course, we'll get into the reasoning why some of these picks are so broken when played by the best. So hopefully, you guys can take some sort of inspiration from this and play these champions in your games. So without further ado, let's get into the countdown. Now, coming in at number 10, this is Kai'Sa. And you can see that Kai'Sa, when she's picked in close to 45% of matches in high elo Korea, that's in over 1,500 games, she has over a 51% win rate. This is very, very respectable indeed. And it's respectable really because of the buffs that have come in recently for Kai'Sa. So whether it's last patch in 12.19, the passive buff, whether it's in 12.16, so a few patches ago, again, buffs your passive, buffs your Q, buffs your AP ratios, I guess, and your killer instinct and your Q. These mean that if you're building some sort of like Nash's 2 setup, well, this is just more powerful, but generally speaking as well, Kai'Sa has just become stronger. And you can see that when people are building Kraken Slayer with Berserker's Greaves and then the Collector, in over 200 matches to win close to 64%, that is legit. I would just be careful, guys, if you're going to pick Kai'Sa about blind picking her, because there are lots of champions who do very well into her. Strong laners in particular, like Ashe and Varus, Tristana, who as soon as she jumps in, you're probably going to get blown up and just out-traded. Tristana also scales very, very well. And even a champion like Yasuo, because as Wind Wall, it just cucks all of your abilities. So do be a little bit careful of blind picking her, but for the most part, just a very good innately strong champion. Now heading into the mid lane here, a champion, well, who is probably one of the most annoying champions to play against in League, this being Akshan. He comes in at number 9. So for Akshan in the mid lane in high elo Korea, a 58% win rate or close to in over 200 matches, this is something to think about. And you can see that this mythic and core item setup with Eclipse, even though it's been nerfed, and then Ghostblade and plated steel caps, this looks really, really questionable. But the point here is that the armor penetration from Eclipse, and also the passive, the movement speed, the shield, this is all useful, but when you pair this with Ghostblade's movement speed, whether it's from the passive or the active, these two combine beautifully, and you can get around the map super quickly because, well, that is really why you're playing Akshan. You want to shove mid, that's why you're maxing your Q first, so you have all the wave clear in the world, and then you can move around the map picking off the enemy stragglers. Just make sure, guys, if you are playing Akshan in the mid lane, Ignite is probably your best bet. You can always think of running Exhaust if you're against a high burst damage mid laner like a Zed or a Fizz, but for the most part, Ignite just sounds super broken, makes you very, very hard to beat in the mid lane, so Akshan with Eclipse comes in at number 9. Now, number 8 on the countdown, we're heading back to the bot lane here. Now, if you don't want to play Kai'Sa, even with lethal tempo getting nerfed, then picking Draven is another great choice. Even though Draven, well, a few patches ago now, got his Q-based damage nerfed, didn't really change that much because not many AD carries at the moment are just, well, strong enough to compete with this champion. Even with the Eclipse nerf as well from last patch, the lethal tempo nerf in this patch doesn't really mean anything for Draven because when you just get Serrated Dirk and Essence Reaver, that's the spike you need. Even though Eclipse's actual damage, so in terms of lethality, that did get nerfed, you're still getting the armor penetration, so you still have the scaling there when enemy champions start to build more armor, and when you do start getting more items as well and triggering, obviously, Eclipse's mythic passive, you will still be one-shotting people. And if you are going to one-trick Draven, guys, I just recommend banning Misfortune, because running through her ultimate is not very fun, and she's also strong in lane and can compete with you. So if you ban Misfortune, you should win bot lane every single game on this champion. Now, number 7 on the countdown, a champion who's banned in over 40% of games in high elo Korea. This is Pyke support. And Pyke support, if we just look at these stats, well, apart from the ban rate, of course, to be picked in over 10% of games and to have close to a 51% win rate, it just means the champion is an S+ tier champion. Now you can see the rune page here when you're running bone plating and unflinching, because Pyke getting CC'd, well, it's really the big, if you're not CC'd, so if you can move freely, that's when you're a big threat, so unflinching is obviously the choice, and then bone plating into those engage all any bot lane matchups. So if you're against any melee support, bone plating is a must. You can think of maybe taking something else if you're into poke-based supports or enchantresses, but again, even into those compositions, especially in the mid to late game, where you're going to be in the enemy team's phase, bone plating will keep you alive, especially because our build here with Umbral Glaive and Dustblade, we will be very, very squishy. And just remember, guys, because we're getting an Umbral Glaive early, we want zombie ward in our runes so we can get those ward kills. So Pyke, if you want to 1v9 from the support role, I know the champion is difficult to play. Again, check out our website in the description and comment section to learn how to master this champion, but not only is he prolific in high elo career, but he's also a very successful champion. Now, speaking of very successful, let's head to the top lane here and talk about Gangplank. Now, in most elos, right, GP, well, really just isn't the best pick according to the stats. But if we look here in over 280 matches to be banned and over 12% of them and picked in almost 10%, it's close to a 55% win rate. That's when you know this champion, when played at the max limit, is incredibly strong. And if we look at this rune page here with First Strike, this lets you scale so quickly. Because GP, essentially you are a ranged top laner, it's very easy to trigger First Strike and get the gold, whether it's through your barrels, even your ultimate it's useful too. So if you're using your ultimate cross map for a bot lane fight, First Strike will activate. And another bit of interesting tech here is that people are actually starting longsword in some matchups on GP, but if you're going to do this, guys, please make sure you are actually running this setup. So not only is the 10 attack damage from longsword useful to get more First Strike damage and therefore more gold, but biscuit delivery is essential to run because you will run very quickly. Mana is really your HP bar in Gangplank, so make sure you have this rune setup if you start with a longsword. Taste of Blood is really useful, obviously, for the sustain, and Treasure Hunter to get snowballing and hopefully to again accelerate your scaling so you get to your big items like Triforce, Collector, Mortal Reminder as soon as possible. Just make sure you're playing around your barrels, guys, and you have the auto prio on the barrels you put down. Do not just run away from them and let the enemy champions have them for free. So barrel positioning, very important. That goes without saying, and again, check out our website for the best gameplay guides going around. Now moving back down to the bot lane here, starting off the top 5 high elo Korean champions, we have one champion who, well, has one of the highest win rates in the entire game in this elo, this being Rell, with close to a 58% win rate, and look how much she's picked in well. Once every 10 games, that's not bad at all. So in over 300 matches to have these stats, very impressive. Now the big reason why Rell is actually just so good is because if we think about it, she counters so many supports and also a mobile AD carries, right? And because lots of AD carries just aren't really that strong during the laning phase, Rell, as soon as you jump in, they're going to get blown up. But just before you copy down this rune page, guys, there are a couple of kind of like intricacies to know about. So second wind is taken here on Rell. This is obviously against champions who have poke, right? If you're against all any melee champions engages, like I said for Pyke, you want to be running bone plating. Also Glacial Augment, you might be thinking, well, can't I go Aftershock? Yes, you can. But again, you're taking Aftershock into those melee supports. So stuff like Nautilus, Alistair, Braum, because these fights will probably just be all in. Whoever kills the enemy champions first wins. That's when you can take Aftershock. But into double range compositions in the bot lane, so you might be against like Nami Lucian, you might be against, I don't know, Caitlyn Lux, anything like this, right, where they have two ranged champions. Glacial is so valuable because of the slow. It allows you and also your teammates, whether it's your AD carry or jungler who's ganking, the gap close and kill both and not only one of them. Also in these matchups, make sure you're taking Hex Flash, because when you do burn their flash once, next time you go in with your crash down, 100% dead. So make sure you have these little intricacies in your head when you pick Rell for support. All the rest are 12-20. Now heading to the mid lane, guys, for pick number 4. This is a champion who got changed last patch, and this is Syndra, who is absolutely smashing it in high reloads. You can see with close to a 52% win rate. And just look at this for me. She's picked in 18% of games. So that's almost 1 in 5 games she's picked in, and she's banned in over a quarter of games. So these stats will probably be even better if she was able to be picked more. So in over 620 matches, to have close to a 52% win rate, it really goes to show how far this champion has come since the changes. Now, as far as your runes go, guys, you don't actually just have to copy this page down again. If you're into a matchup where you've just outranged the enemy champion and getting the first source of damage off, like you're going to be the one hitting them first, then taking First Strike is excellent. Syndra nowadays isn't really the lane bully she once was, because her Q cooldown got nerfed, and you're really playing for your Splinter stacking in your passive, right? So you can take Airy, you can take Transcendence and Scorch. This is just a stronger lane setup, but if you think you can get away with running First Strike, and then maybe something like Mana Flow Band and Scorch as your secondary tree, or Mana Flow Band, even Transcendence or Gathering Storm, you'll probably actually just do better with this because you're getting so much free gold from First Strike. Obviously, as far as your items go, because of the new damage Syndra has, we want to go maximum magic penetration. So Luden's Tempest, not only the flat magic penetration you're getting from this, but the mythic passive as well. Then with Sorcerer Shoes, Magic Pen, Shadow Flame, Magic Pen, also triggering Luden's passive. These items are your core items. Just make sure, guys, if you are playing Syndra in the mid lane, some of your worst matchups, they might include kind of assassins. So Yasuo, Zed might be bad because of their mobility. It's hard to hit them right. So make sure you're using your E wisely, and also don't feel like you just have to Q all the time. Also, if you're trying to Q minions just to CS, remember you're probably pushing the wave as well because of their AoE in your Q. So try to last hit or just hit one of them with your Q if you have to farm like that, and stand away from the wave if you're playing against a Yasuo. Do not let him just eat through the wave and onto your head. Don't really know why I brought up that specific matchup, but I've seen it so many times coaching. But yes, let's move on to pick number 3. And speaking about one of those mid laners who does very well against Syndra because she just outranges Syndra, this is Zoe. And in high elo career and over 360 matches, she's picked in over 10% of games still, banned in almost 20%. People legit think this champion is just a pain in in the you-know-what to play against, and she has close to a 54% win rate, so they're obviously speaking some sense here. Now, why is Zoe so good? Well, if we think about it, think of all the buffs to Zoe recently. I know she's not picked in pro games, and that's really because pro games at the moment, the meta, is more about durability, I guess, and actual sustained DPS. It's no longer about just landing a sleepy trouble bubble and then blowing that champion up. But in solo queue, if we think about it, teams aren't going to be like that coordinated, and punishing enemy champions' mistakes with your sleepy trouble bubble, it's super easy just to play the game, right? You see your E-land, you ping that target so your teammates know, and you just kill them instantly. Just be very careful about picking Zoe when stuff like Kassadin is up. Even assassins like Zed, Talon, Kiana, they do very well against you because, well, with your ultimate doesn't really do anything, right? So their level 6 is going to be a lot more powerful than yours, so you have to make sure you play aggressive in the first 5 levels, guys. That's why you're picking Zoe for the priority and to get a lead. And of course, as far as your items go, you have a lot of options. You can go Everfrost, Ludens, maybe even Leandris if the enemy team is very tanky. Even Crown might be good against those assassins, but just remember you're missing magic penetration if you don't go Ludens, so we have to go Shadow Flame immediately after with your Sork shoes. So just think about that before you get in game. Now, number 2, a champion who we're seeing a lot of at Worlds, unlike Zoe, this is Graves. In over 1100 games in high elo career, look at these pick and ban rates for me. Close to a 33% pick rate, over a 35% ban rate, and to have a 53.5% win rate, this champion has to be nerfed. Like legit, these stats are just way too OP. So make sure, guys, you can abuse Graves for the next 2 weeks because yes, I think he will get nerfed in 12.21 or a future patch at least. And the reason Graves is so OP, well, it's really the Gore Drinker build, but also the buffs that came in 12.17. So the cooldown in your Q going down at later ranks, again, this activated with Gore Drinker's mythic passive and the ability haste, makes it on like a 4-second cooldown once you actually start scaling into the mid to late game, which is when you're so powerful anyway. And your collateral damage, your ultimate, the base damage increase. Like, I don't even know if Graves needed these buffs, but he got them, and that's why he's become super busted. But the number 1 pick, this might be a little bit surprising because Frozen Heart got nerfed, right, in 12.20. So the cost went up, and even though the armor went up, the passive, the rock solid passive, did get nerfed a little bit. So for Jax to be the number 1 high elo Korean champion, how does this even work? So in over 380 matches, pick rate 10%, ban rate over 15%, 55% win rate of close enough. S+ tier. But the reason Jax is just killing it is because of Divine Syndra and then Blade of the Ruined King. This build you can see in 23 matches, and this will be built more, whether Jaxes are going like Murtreads or Steel Caps, and I'd really recommend going Steel Caps if the enemy jungler as well as the top laner is attack damage based, Murtreads if they have a lot of CC, right, and then getting a Bork after your Divine Syndra. Your DPS is unmatched. And it's also interesting here, Jax is taking grasps as well, so not actually taking lethal tempo. Now remember, lethal tempo got nerfed for ranged champions, not melees, so it's still exactly the same for Jax, but grasp, when you can actually auto-attack the enemy champion a lot, well, it just makes your trading even better, right? And because Jax pretty much outscales anyone, you're really taking grasp to just get out of the laning phase, whether it's ahead or even. If that's the case, you're going to be chilling for the rest of the game. So think about picking Jax, guys. Even though Frozen Heart did get nerfed, you can still build it, of course. Again, if the enemy champions rely on a lot of attack speed, for sure. So those were the 10 most broken high elo Korean picks, guys, for 12.20. Take them into consideration into your champion pool, if you will. And if you do want us to continue these videos, let us know by leaving a like down below. And until our next Season 12 upload, this has been a...